Have you ever wondered why some people seem to wear different masks for each life situation? Why are we surprised when we discover that someone who seemed so kind revealed themselves to be cruel at a decisive moment? Or why do admired public figures crumble in scandals that completely contradict the image they projected? Today we will explore a profound secret of human psychology, a truth that Carl Jung, one of the greatest explorers of the human psyche, understood like few others. This knowledge can completely transform the way you see the people around you and, more importantly, yourself. The title of this video promises something seemingly simple. To see someone's true character, pay attention to just two things. But, as Jung would teach us, what appears simple on the surface often hides abysses of complexity in its depths. These two things are not tricks or shortcuts to judge others. They are portals to understanding true human nature, windows to the soul that cannot be easily disguised or manipulated. They are moments when the masks we all wear inevitably slip, revealing what Jung would call our true individuality. Before we reveal these two keys to understanding human character, I invite you to prepare for a journey through the labyrinth of the psyche, where we will encounter shadows and light, personas and authenticity, the unconscious and the conscious, all elements of the great dance that constitutes the human being. If you stay until the end, you will not only discover these two crucial revelations of human character, but you will also learn to apply this knowledge to develop more authentic relationships, make wiser decisions about whom to trust, and perhaps most valuable of all, see yourself with greater clarity and compassion. To truly understand someone's character, we first need to understand what normally prevents us from seeing it. Jung developed the concept of persona, the social mask we wear in different contexts. The word persona comes from Latin and literally refers to the masks worn by actors in ancient theater. According to Jung, we all develop personas as necessary adaptations to navigate the social world. The persona is a complicated system of relations between individual consciousness and society, wrote Jung, a kind of mask designed on the one hand to make a definite impression upon others, and on the other, to conceal the true nature of the individual. Think of the persona as an interface between our inner world and the outer one. The executive projects confidence and decisiveness, even when internally filled with doubts. The teacher shows severity in the classroom, though gentle by nature. The celebrity smiles for the cameras while fighting a depression invisible to the public eye. But here's the fundamental problem. We often confuse the persona with the true self. The persona is just a thin layer on the surface of a deep and vast ocean that is the human psyche, an iceberg whose visible tip barely suggests the magnitude of what remains hidden in the dark waters. Beneath the persona, we first find the ego, the conscious part of our personality, what we call I. But even the ego is not the entire being. Jung warns us that the ego is merely an island in a vast ocean that he called the unconscious. And it is precisely in the unconscious that we find crucial elements of true character. The shadow, aspects of ourselves that we repress or deny. The anima, animus, our internal feminine and masculine aspects. And the self, the integrating center of the total personality. The shadow is particularly relevant to our investigation of character. It is composed of aspects of ourselves that we repress, deny, or hide. Our unacceptable impulses, weaknesses, and desires that contradict our conscious self-image. Everyone carries a shadow, wrote Jung, and the less it is embodied in the individual's conscious life, the blacker and denser it is. The more we deny our shadow, the more it tends to appear in unconscious behaviors, often projected onto others. We see in others what we do not want to recognize in ourselves. When we meet someone, we initially see only their persona, perhaps glimpsing parts of their ego. We rarely have immediate access to the unconscious material that truly shapes their character and behavior. So, how can we see beyond the masks? How can we glimpse the true character hidden in the depths? Here we arrive at the first of the two crucial revelations of human character. Carefully observe how someone treats people who can offer them nothing. When we interact with people who can benefit us in some way, bosses, authority figures, popular or influential people, Our behavior is strongly influenced by conscious and unconscious motivations linked to social gain, approval, or material benefit. In these situations, our personas are working at maximum capacity, polished and adjusted to make the best possible impression. But observe what happens when someone interacts with the waiter serving their coffee, with the janitor in the hallway, with the elderly person walking slowly in front of them, or with the child who has no connection to their social circle. In these insignificant interactions, where there is no apparent gain, the persona often lets its guard down. It's as if Jung were whispering to us. It is in the relationship with the apparently insignificant that a person's true moral value is revealed. For there, where there are no witnesses to impress nor rewards to reap, behavior springs more directly from the depths of being. This idea resonates with philosophical traditions from around the world. Confucius taught that a man's character can be known by how he treats those below him. In the Judeo-Christian tradition, we find the notion that true charity is that practiced without expecting recognition. Think about how this revelation manifests in everyday life. The executive who smiles at investors but yells at the secretary when no one is looking. The university professor who is charming with academic colleagues but despises the cleaning staff. The politician who kisses babies during the campaign but cuts social programs when elected. The boyfriend who is attentive and affectionate in public but ignores the partner's emotional needs in the privacy of home. In each of these cases, behavior toward those who socially don't matter reveals more authentic aspects of character. Why does this happen? Because when there is no audience to impress, when there is no social reward at stake, our behaviors emerge more directly from what Jung would call the self, the integrating center of our total personality. Our true values, not just those we proclaim, manifest in these seemingly insignificant interactions. When we are before someone who socially matters, our persona is on high alert. We are careful with every word, every gesture. But before the waiter, the rideshare driver, the anonymous person on the street, in these moments, the guard lowers and more authentic aspects of our character emerge. Jung understood that the process of individuation, the journey towards psychic wholeness, involves integrating the various aspects of our personality, including our shadow. A highly individuated person will show greater consistency in their treatment of others, regardless of their social position or perceived utility. Not because their shadow has disappeared, but because they recognize and integrate its existence, reducing its unconscious and uncontrolled manifestations. The second crucial revelation about human character is equally profound. Observe how someone behaves when they believe no one is watching. In moments when we think we are alone, free from society's judging gaze, our persona, that social mask Jung so well described, naturally dissolves. It is in this space of apparent social invisibility that many aspects of our true character emerge to the surface. Jung understood that we are social beings by nature, and much of our conscious identity is formed in relation to others. When we temporarily remove this social dimension, when there are no witnesses to approve or disapprove of us, we manifest behaviors that emerge from deeper layers of our psyche. Think about the small daily choices we make when we believe no one is watching. Returning a shopping cart to the appropriate place in the supermarket parking lot, even in the rain. Picking up trash from the ground in an empty park, although you weren't the one who threw it there. Leaving a generous tip in a restaurant in a city you will never visit again. Not taking money forgotten by someone, even when no one would see. Or, on the contrary, littering when no one is looking. Ignoring a message from someone in need when there are no social consequences. Cheating on something small when you're sure it won't be discovered. Speaking ill of an absent friend in a different social circle. Jung would say that these moments reveal not only our conscious values, but also the degree of integration between our conscious ego and the unconscious aspects of our psyche. A person at an advanced stage of individuation, the Jungian process of psychic integration, will demonstrate greater consistency between their public and private behavior, not out of fear of punishment, but because their values are genuinely incorporated into their being. Individuation has no other goal than the liberation of the self from the false wrappings of the persona and the suggestive power of unconscious primordial images, wrote Jung. When someone achieves a greater degree of individuation, the discrepancy between public and private behavior naturally diminishes. This revelation also connects us to the Jungian concept of integrity. For Jung, integrity was not simply a moral quality, but a psychological state of internal cohesion, where the various parts of the psyche work in relative harmony rather than conflict. The person of integrity acts similarly under the social spotlight and in anonymous solitude, not because they are perfect, but because they recognize and integrate their internal contradictions, their lights and shadows. These two revelations of character, how we treat those who can offer us nothing, and how we act when we believe no one is watching, are deeply related to the Jungian concept of shadow and the process of individuation. The shadow, as Jung conceived it, contains aspects of ourselves that we repress or deny. It is the repository of what we consider unacceptable in our conscious self-image. It may include qualities considered negative by society or by our upbringing, selfishness, envy, anger, greed, but also unrecognized talents, unexplored potentials, and sensitivities that we have learned to suppress. Instead of confronting his own shadow, man usually projects the contents of his shadow onto others, seeing them in others and not in himself, wrote Jung. Thus, we often criticize in others exactly what we unconsciously fear or deny in ourselves. The encounter with the shadow is an essential part of the individuation process, the psychological journey toward integration and wholeness. Jung saw individuation as the central purpose of human development. The goal of individuation is nothing less than to divest the self of the false wrappings of the persona and the suggestive power of primordial images. When we begin to recognize the patterns revealed by our two observations about character, how we treat the insignificant and how we act when no one is watching, we initiate a process of confrontation with our own shadow. Perhaps we realize that, despite our self-image as a kind and altruistic person, we treat badly those who can offer us nothing, or that, away from others' gaze, we allow selfish or destructive impulses to guide our actions. These perceptions, though painful, are portals to deeper self-knowledge. The process of individuation does not mean eliminating the shadow. That would be impossible and psychologically dangerous. It means, yes, recognizing it, accepting it as part of who we are, and consciously integrating it into our total personality. It is a process of expanding consciousness that allows us greater authenticity and psychological integrity. As Jung wrote, it is not by becoming better, happier, or more perfect that we individuate. We individuate as we become more complete and more conscious of our wholeness, including both our bright and dark aspects. As we advance on this path of individuation, we naturally develop greater consistency between our different social selves. We treat people with more equanimity, regardless of their status or perceived utility to us. And our behavior when alone aligns more harmoniously with our stated values. Not because we become morally perfect, but because we more consciously integrate the various aspects of our psyche, reducing the unconscious and uncontrolled influence of our shadow. How can we practically apply this Jungian knowledge about human character in our daily lives? How can these two revelations, observing how someone treats those who can offer nothing and how they behave when they believe no one is watching, help us better navigate the social world and develop greater self-knowledge? First, we can use these observations as a valuable guide in forming relationships. By paying attention to how a potential friend, business partner, or romantic partner treats socially insignificant people, we get glimpses of their character that go beyond the carefully constructed persona they present to us. The executive who is charming to you but rude to the waiter is not simply demonstrating a momentary lapse in manners. They are revealing aspects of their character that may eventually emerge in their relationship with you. The colleague who speaks ill of the absent will inevitably speak ill of you when you are not present. Jung would teach us that these inconsistencies do not make someone a bad person. We all have inconsistencies. We all carry a shadow. But being aware of these patterns allows us to make more conscious choices about who we associate with intimately and what kind of behavior we accept in our social circles. More deeply, we can turn this gaze upon ourselves, using these two revelations as mirrors for our own character. Jung emphasized that genuine self-knowledge is the foundation of all psychological development. Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakens. Jung would invite us to ask ourselves, how do I treat people who can offer me nothing in terms of status, power, or advantage? How do I behave when I believe no one is watching? Where do I find the greatest discrepancies between my public and private behavior? What aspects of my shadow can I recognize in these observations? These reflections are not exercises in merciless self-criticism, but invitations to compassionate self-knowledge that Jung considered essential to the process of individuation. Recognizing aspects of our shadow does not mean condemning ourselves, but taking the first step to more fully integrate the various aspects of our psyche. As Jung wrote, "There is no light without shadow, and no psychic wholeness without imperfection. Life needs not perfection but completeness, and for this, the thorn in the flesh is needed, the suffering of defects." As we develop greater awareness of our own shadow, we naturally become less rigid in our judgments of others. We recognize that we all carry internal contradictions. We all struggle with shadowy aspects of our personality. This recognition can lead to more genuine compassion, not the false tolerance that ignores harmful behaviors, but a deeper understanding of human complexity. Finally, we can use these revelations as guidance for our own ethical and psychological development. We can consciously cultivate greater consistency between our different social selves, not out of fear of others' judgment, but as an expression of greater psychic integration. We can practice genuine kindness to all, regardless of their social status or utility to us, not as social performance, but as a manifestation of genuinely embodied values. We can develop integrity between our public and private behavior, not out of fear of being caught, but from a desire for authenticity. As Jung would remind us, this is an ongoing process, not a final destination. Individuation, the journey towards psychic wholeness, is the work of a lifetime. Each small step toward greater consciousness, each moment of honest self-reflection, each act of integrating aspects of our shadow moves us forward on this path. By observing how we treat those who can offer us nothing and how we act when we believe no one is watching, we not only learn to discern the character of others more clearly, but also illuminate the path to our own psychological and spiritual development.